Welcome back to the channel, Classic Volkswagen Lovers, a junior with a classic BW Bucks and Sunny the Super Beetle. Today we're going to replace the clutch cable. For that, we're going to be using this special tool here to remove the wing nut from the transmission lever. That's the first thing we're going to do. Then we're going to pull that cable out through the front and then slit in the new one. Then we should be able to install the cluster pedal. So that right there is the transmission lever, and we're going to use the special tool that I just showed you to remove that wing nut. Okay, so now we have to get our fingers in this hole here and see if we can fish the clutch cable so that we can pull it out. I measured the two wires side by side and they seems to be the same. So now I'm going to begin to feed this clutch cable through that hole. As I feed it, I am going to start lubricating it in small sections so that it won't be messy. And keep on until I get it all the way out to the point that it reaches the transmission lever. I'm going to be using the only available grease that I have right now. It's high temp disc brake wheel bearing grease. And I'm going to try not to be messy and use a painter's brush to apply grease to the wire as I feed it. Okay, let's see how this works. So there's a tube inside the tunnel where this wire runs in. You have to get the cable started into the tube. In the diagram, the green line represents the clutch cable tube that I was addressing earlier in the video. The rectangle opening is where I'm sticking the clutch cable to align it with the clutch cable tube. I managed to get it started, as you can see, only with one hand, but I am going to rinse my hand with some soapy water and then put some gloves on, because from here on I'm going to have to grease that wire and I'm going to try not to be messy. I'm going to use this painter's brush and see if I can just apply a small amount of the grease to it as I go. So let's see. This is one of my least favorite parts of working in a Volkswagen, having to install this clutch wire. It's just a tedious job. It's messy. And you have to have a lot of patience, and you and I know that patience is a virtue, right? Next, I'm going to remove the rubber clutch hose to see how far in I am with the clutch cable. Okay, let me pull this hose out to see how far in I am with this cable. That will give me a better idea. Okay, so I can see the clutch cable. So now all I have to do is pull it a little bit more, and I'm going to slit the clutch rubber hose over it, and then I'll put the wing nut and the clutch cable after I run it through the eye nut and the transmission lever. Okay, so now that we have slit the clutch hose, we make sure that it's properly installed and check at the end where the rubber boot seals to the chassis to make sure that we have a seal a good seal there. And once we do that, then we can go ahead, bring this up here and align it with the two balls in the transmission, and make sure you have it installed properly there. And then you put these two nuts here and you torque them, and you should be done. After you get that done, then you have to take the end of your clutch cable, slit it through the transmission lever, and install the wing nut. So that's pretty much it. So for the time being, I'm just going to snug these here, and then later on I'll come back and torque them to the right spec. We're going to hook the cluster pedal to the loop right there, and then insert that, and then see if we can get cluster pedal installed. Let's see if we can install this. Okay guys, so I want to make an observation here. A small observation I want to make here is, before you install your pedal, make sure your accelerator retraction spring is properly installed, and make sure that a small piece at the end of the spring, it's sticking down and in the right direction, because otherwise your pedal won't retract as it should. So you got to make sure that that's there, so that the spring can actually perform this action right here. Up and it goes back down, up and it goes back down. So keep that in mind. I've had situations where I get caught in the moment and I install it wrong and I have to take it back out, but luckily I've done it before I installed the cluster pedal. So let's see what we can do now. This is the hardest part, trying to get this here installed into this hook here without it falling off or disengaging from here. Okay, so let's see if I can do this. It's gonna be tough to record it, but the idea is to lubricate that end of the loop for the clutch cable, hook it right here, and then begin to install this piece, and making sure that it won't disengage from the hook. I found to be somehow easier for me. I realized that I had to keep the clutch pedal up at all times, and to be able to install this bolt here, I just released the brake pedal to come all the way back, and I torqued that one first, and then I was able to actually bring this up like this. So notice how the spring now, it's retracting the pedal, which that is what it's supposed to be doing. So now I can push this up, and I was able to torque that there. I'm crossing my fingers that my clutch cable remains engaged in the clutch shaft. So let's see how that goes when I go in the back and I pull on the lever to install the wing nut in the cable. So that's my next step. That's what I'm going to do next. I could just go ahead and install this in here and thread it in here, but I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait because I think it is more critical to get that clutch pedal engaged in both the front here and the rear end, and that's what I'm about to do now. So next, I am going to bring this lever over. Then I'm going to get this through there, install the wind nut, and hopefully that stays on and I can adjust the clutch pedal play. Now it's going to be really hard for me to video this because, as you can see, I'm using one hand, and with the other hand I'm moving my camera. I'm showing you this, so I'm gonna have to drop my camera, set aside, but basically as you can see, the tip right here, I'm moving it up and down. It's gonna go through that eye, and after it goes through the eye, I'm gonna force the lever to come over like that, and then I'm gonna put my wind nut in it, and the wind nut is what I will use to adjust the clutch pedal play for it to make sure that it properly engages the gears when I'm done. The rule of thumb is that you should have no more than ½ an inch play in the end, in the front of the car. You shouldn't have any more than ½ an inch play in the clutch pedal against the firewall inside the car. So we're going to take a look at that and see if it works out. So next I'm going to go ahead and install that wind nut and cross my fingers that it stays engaged inside. I can't do this. Bring this over like this.
Okay, so in this part here you have to be very careful because installing the wind nut is kind of like a tedious job. You have to pull the transmission lever while at the same time you're trying to thread that nut into the end of the cable, and you have to make sure that in front of the car your clutch pedal, it's actually standing up in the vertical position, because if it drops down you risk a chance that the clutch cable disengages the hook. Okay, wind nut install. Let's move to the front of the cart. Now we have to check the clutch play. Remember, you can't not have any more than ½ an inch of play in the clutch pedal.
So the cluster pedal is now installed. This was quite the task for one person. Trying to get the whole cluster pedal assembly installed by yourself, it's kind of tricky. You have to fiddle with it and be very careful not to drop off the clutch cable from the hook. So as you are maneuvering it up and down, that hook, it's actually engaged in the clutch pedal shaft lever inside the tunnel, and you have to be very careful when you're adjusting and trying to get your brake pedal set in place, that cable won't drop off the hook. It's really tedious. It can be done by one person, but honestly it's not an easy task. The sad thing for me is that I know that when I purchase my carpet kit, I'm gonna have to remove it, and hopefully that's gonna be around that springtime, maybe summer, right before the Volkswagen Fest, and perhaps I might get some help so that when I am about to install the cluster pedal back on, then it would be easier. A trick to remember is to make sure that once you slit the cluster pedal through the tunnel, I immediately just install the push rod for the master cylinder, and that little brake plate that you see in the bottom, make sure you install that one immediately to hold the brake pedal in place. That helps a lot. Kind of tricky, I'm not gonna lie, but I got it done. At least now I can move on to check my brakes and make sure that they are functional. I can check to see if my transmission it's in good working order. I can get to do some of those things before I'm ready to install my interiors, which is another part of the car that I still have to work on. But with the weather now being cold, I'm not gonna take a chance to try to glue anything in here. Not to mention that I don't want to do anything in my floors until I install my headliner up there. One of the things that I might do now in winter is remove these glasses here and these here, as well as the rear one, so that when the time comes for me to install the headliner, I will be ready to install it. They say that it's better to remove your glasses, when the weather is cold, because molecules, they have a tendency to shrink. So I'm gonna actually go with that probably in the next couple of weeks. So I'll keep sharing with you what I have. Well, anyway, I hope that the explanation helps a little bit. I know it's really hard to record what you're doing with one hand and try to get the job done with one hand. Hopefully, maybe some of the small clips help. So I hope that this video clip helps you. If this is your first time watching my channel, don't forget to subscribe. If you like the contents, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It helps my channel be promoted, to other Volkswagen communities, and help my channel grow more, so I can continue sharing the knowledge with you and my Volkswagen projects. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until then, this is Junior with Classic VW Bucks. See you on the next video. Junior out.